Okay, so the ROG Phone 5 is the best gaming phone in the world, right? Well, not if Lenovo have anything to say about it. This is the new Legion Phone Duel 2. Terrible name, but it's bigger, slightly faster. It literally has the fan built into the body rather than relying on an optional attachment. And we even get a whopping 44 megapixel pop-up selfie camera for streaming. Lenovo have really upped their game with this. Hey guys, I'm Tom the Tech Chap, and this is a monster 6.92 inches. It's the Legion phone, of course. This is massive, nearly 7 inches, and a fair bit bigger than the 6.78 inch screen that you get on the ROG Phone 5. But honestly, they're both massive. And they actually have a lot in common. AMOLED screens, 144Hz refresh, shoulder triggers. They're designed to use horizontally with the dual USB-C ports so cables don't get in your way. They're both dual SIM, 5G, have stereo speakers and dual haptic vibration motors, and they're both powered by the latest Snapdragon 888 with more RAM than you can shake a stick at, up to a whopping 18 gigabytes of the stuff. Both also have pretty average rear cameras, with all the effort really being put into the front camera for recording and streaming. And of course, no gaming phone would be complete without a bit of go faster RGB. Although, if you are a more sophisticated gamer and all this flashy RGB and gamer themed UI is all a bit too much, you can turn it all off and also switch back to a stock Android 11-like theme on both phones. So before we get any further, you are going to have a very similar awesome gaming experience on both these phones. But there are a few significant differences, and it is of course also going to come down to the price. Lenovo haven't actually given me final pricing for this yet, but I will pin a comment below with the pricing for both these phones so you can compare them. So check that out below, and also let me know as we go which one you think is better. And if you are new to the channel, then a cheeky subscribe and maybe a ding of the bell icon would be amazing. So let's dive a little bit deeper, and for my own sanity, I'm just going to call this the Legion and it's the ROG. Now, starting with the Legion, I'm sure you'll agree the big standout here is that bloody great bulge out of the back. Lenovo have integrated the fan, so whereas on the ROG Phone, if I can get all my bits and pieces together, it's obviously a little bit thinner and lighter, and you've got this flashy RGB ROG logo there, struggling with my words. But with this, you have to buy the optional accessory, which costs about £50, although it does come bundled, I think, with the Pro and Ultimate models. And you actually have to slot it in yourself, and then you've got your fancy active fan on the back. Whereas Lenovo have basically taken it to the next level and integrated it into the actual phone. So you can't take it off, which means it is a little bit thicker and heavier than the ROG. But it also means you don't have to fumble around putting one on, you don't have to carry it with you, and it basically means you can jump into your game, pull down the Legion control center and turn on Rampage mode, which boosts the CPU and GPU, and get the best performance possible. Whereas on the ROG, you still have X mode, but you do need the Aeroactive cooler to unlock X mode Plus. So I think Lenovo's been pretty smart here, and they've crammed all the hotter components into this middle section, so where you hold it on the outside is a little bit cooler, although both phones do still get pretty toasty while gaming. You can definitely hear both the fans whirring. The Lenovo's slightly higher pitched and maybe a little bit more annoying. Either way, once you have some volume in your games or a pair of headphones on, you're not going to notice it, but you can hear the fans. Anyway, the big question is, when it comes to a video about gaming phones, which is faster? So I've got the 3D Mark Wildlife stress test running here, if I can avoid my annoying studio lights. And this is a 20-minute long benchmark, so it should give us an idea of sustained performance as well, because that, I think, is going to be the big difference really between a gaming phone like this and something like this. And it turns out the Legion is just a little bit faster. Only 2% on the best loop score, but 5.5% in the lowest loop, with a higher stability percentage as well. Not only that, but the ROG Phone dropped 20% of its battery versus 14% on the Legion. Now, for a bit of context, if I bring in the Galaxy S21 Ultra, which also has a Snapdragon 888, just look at that difference in the lowest loop score and the stability. And if you're interested, here are the 3 phones compared in Geekbench 5 for both the CPU and also the OpenCL compute test. So on both the ROG and the Legion, the vapor chamber cooler and the active fans make a huge difference to sustained performance, which is, as I say, where gaming phones really stand out. The thing is though, even if the Legion is a couple of percent faster in these synthetic benchmarks, does that translate to any real-world noticeable difference? Well, the answer is no, actually. After 20 minutes of playing Armour Mobile Ops on both phones, which is a fairly demanding game and also supports higher refresh rates, using the Gamebench Pro software, it turns out there's no difference between them. We're getting the same median frame rate, although again, the ROG's battery is draining a little bit faster. If we are playing the numbers game, then the Legion phone does have a 720Hz touch sampling rate, over double the ROG's 300, so that means the time it takes for your phone to react to your press is even faster. It's a fraction of a second difference, which I would not notice, but for esports gamers, it's worth knowing. Now, a staple of any good gaming phone are these shoulder buttons. In fact, as many buttons as possible, really, so that when you're playing games, you can avoid having to use the virtual on-screen buttons. And we're getting pretty much exactly the same experience on both the phones. Launch a game, swipe open the Game Center, and then customize the triggers. On both, each shoulder trigger can be split into two, so an L1 and an L2, R1 and R2 for example, although that can make it a little bit more tricky to tap the right part of it. And then just drag the corresponding trigger onto the screen, and then when you press it, it'll virtually tap that point. Altogether, the Legion has 8 buttons, 4 on the shoulder, 2 on the back, and if the game supports it, 2 on the screen as well, which are activated by a firm press. It's pretty much the same setup on the ROG, but without the on-screen push buttons, and you only get the 2 rear ones built in on the Pro and the Ultimate editions, or if you attach the Airactive cooler. Now, I must admit, I do feel a little bit stupid because it took me a little while to figure out where the selfie camera was on the Legion phone. I thought, well, it's not at the top where it is on the ROG. In fact, on the ROG, they brought it in just a little bit so your thumb's less likely to cover it. I couldn't figure it out until I went to the camera app, and then I turned the camera around to the selfie mode and saw this. It's a 44 megapixel pop-up selfie camera, which as you can see is right in the middle of the phone, and even the power button is actually on top of it. Definitely an interesting design. It does make sense if you are gaming and maybe you're Twitch streaming or live recording yourself. You've got your camera in a really nice location. Your finger's not going to cover it, and you are central to the frame, whereas you're probably slightly to the outside on the ROG phone. Having said that, it means face unlocking is a little tricky because, well, it sticks out the side and you may be holding it and jabs your finger. And also taking an actual selfie with this, I don't know, it takes a minute to get used to, but I suppose it's maybe a better location, you're not quite as high as you would normally be. Okay, so this is being shot on the ROG Phone 5 with a 24 megapixel selfie camera. You can see it's off center because as I'm looking at this, I'm holding it in landscape mode as if I were gaming and live streaming. I am off center because it's on the left bezel as I'm looking at it. It's also full HD resolution and quite tight on my face. So yeah, let me know what you think of the video quality and also the audio quality from the microphones. But if we then switch over to the Legion phone, well, straight away you can see we've got this central position because we've got the pop-out camera, a much wider field of view, which is nice, and also it's high resolution. You can shoot 4K with the front camera on the Lenovo, whereas only Full HD on the ROG. So again, if I bring that one back in, I think it's a pretty clear win for the Lenovo. Well, in terms of audio quality and video, let me know which one you think looks and sounds better in the comments below. As for the rear cameras, well, neither company's put a whole lot of effort into these. They both have wide and ultra-wide lenses, but the ROG also throws in a macro as well. And here's a few shots side by side. I mean, they're decent, especially in good light, but really the camera quality is the biggest compromise you're making when you're buying a gaming phone. So far we've talked a lot about the Legion phone, but let's talk about the ROG Phone 5 a little bit, because this has a few aces up its sleeve which might convince you to stick with the Republic of Gamers. Firstly, we get a headphone jack, which also supports high-res audio, and maybe with ROG's own Cetra 2 headphones, this is definitely a selling point for a lot of people. Speaking of accessories, I'll be right back. Because one of the big selling points of the ROG phone is its compatibility with these accessories. The only essential one is the Airactive cooler. Definitely get one of these if you're not getting the Pro Ultimate Edition. But by far the most fun one is the Kunai 3 gamepad. This is the same one that came out with last year's ROG Phone 3. They skipped the 4 because the number 4 has some superstitious things around it in Chinese and Taiwanese culture. But the Kunai 3 is still compatible with the 5, and it basically means you could use the ROG phone a bit like a Switch. With proper Joy-Cons, you can use it in multiple different modes, and you just get a ton of extra buttons. And it makes gaming on this a whole lot more comfortable and also a lot more practical. Although like the ROG, the Legion can also support regular keyboard, mouse, and controller peripherals over a USB or Bluetooth connection. The other big selling point of the ROG is its Armoury Create software, which is so much more useful than the Legion Assistant. You can tinker and tweak to your heart's content with per-game clock speeds, fan controls, anything you can think of, it's here. And there's also a community tab so you can share tips and game profiles with other gamers. The Legion, on the other hand, is pretty basic. There's none of this fine control, no game profiles or custom performance settings. You can change what Beast Mode does, which I'm assuming is the same as Rampage Mode, but they couldn't decide what name to settle on. But there's no community tab, just their Twitter feed, and all the RGB lighting is hidden away in the phone's normal display settings. We do also get a bigger battery on the ROG, 6,000 mAh versus 5,500 mAh, but weirdly, this one, in my test at least, lasts longer. After 2 hours of intense gaming, the ROG phone had 69% of its battery left versus 71% on the Legion. Although they'll both get you between 5 and 6 hours of intensive gaming. Hang on, one more thing I want to show you, which I've got over here. A whole bundle of cables. The chargers. This is really interesting actually. They both come with 65-watt chargers in the box, so they top up pretty quickly. It takes like 30 to 40 minutes. This is the ROG charger, pretty standard stuff. But then this is the Legion charger. You actually get 2 USB-C cables bundled in the box, and it supports 2 in the back of the plug. So what you can actually do is plug it in with both cables at the same time to give you even faster turbocharging. Both phones do also support bypass charging, so you can basically power the phone without topping up the battery, which keeps it a bit cooler, and also slower charging modes if you want better battery health over years and years. So let's wrap up. Which is better and which should you buy? Well, the Legion has the built-in fan, which I like. In my benchmarks, it was a tiny bit faster, but in real life, there's no appreciable difference. It has a slightly bigger screen with faster touch sampling, the battery lasts a little bit longer, and I also really like the placement of the pop-up camera, although you might actually find that really annoying. The speakers are also a little bit punchier, and it's also the fastest charging gaming phone you can buy, especially if you upgrade to the 90-watt charger. Whereas the ROG Phone 5 is thinner and lighter, although it does lose that advantage when you have the Aeroactive cooler attached. We get a headphone jack with high-res audio, much better support for accessories, which are genuinely useful, and the Armoury Crate is miles better. The ROG also has a few higher-end features than Legion, including the latest Gorilla Glass Victus, and also Wi-Fi 6E support, which makes it a little bit more future-proof. And also, something I haven't really touched on because I have the standard ROG Phone 5, but the Pro and the Ultimate editions have this customizable OLED screen on the back instead of the ROG Eye, which looks kind of cool. Downsides for both? Well, they do run pretty hot even with the fans whirring, so it did get a little bit uncomfortable, or at least my fingers got a little bit sweaty after half an hour of gaming. Also, neither support any kind of IP water resistance rating. There's no wireless charging, which I guess is to be expected given their designs. They also both take about 1 million years to charge if you don't use their bundled chargers. So the fact is, you really can't go wrong with either. You'll have a very similar experience on both. It's going to come down to pricing, which is annoying because I don't have the final pricing of the Legion phone. If the Legion is cheaper in any way, I'd probably go with this. But what about you? Even if you're not a big mobile gamer, which one would you go for? The Legion or the ROG? Let me know in the comments below. And if you did enjoy this video, give me a thumbs up and subscribe and all those annoying YouTuber things. And if you've also got any questions at all about these phones, let me know below and I'll do my best to answer them. I read every single one of your comments. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time right here on the Tech Chat.